This video shows 3 free tools to help you work from home. It's broken into 3 sections, and they're broken out as you see here based on the times. The first section is video communication with Zoom. The second is document collaboration with Google Docs. And the last, chat and file sharing, uses Microsoft Teams. This portion of the video is going to show you how to use Zoom for video collaboration and meetings. So I'm going to assume you can create a free plan with Zoom. It's very easy. The website is zoom.us, and once you create an account, you can create one for free. You don't have to put a credit card or anything. It asks you basically for a username, a password, your email, a few things like that, but it's very quick and simple. You can do that in like a couple minutes. So I'm already logged into my account. So I'm going to say my account, which is when you first log in. This is what you're going to see. And I'm going to create a meeting. Or that's what I would normally use it for. I'm actually going to show you some settings first, sorry. There's a few different settings that you'll probably want to check. There has been some recent security increases with Zoom, so some of those you may or may not know about if you haven't already used it. But there's a few things I wanted to cover right out of the gate about some of the settings. Now, as you can see, this scrolls a very long way. So there are a ton of settings in here. There's just a couple that I'm going to touch on right now. The first one is under the schedule meeting section. If you click on these little tabs, it sort of advances you down same way as this would. The first one being to join before host. It's best not to let other people join the meeting until you as the host have joined. And that's one of the quickest ways to keep people out of the meetings that you're not necessarily wanting to be there, and that you also know what's being said, etc. In meeting basic section, a couple of things that I want to discuss there. One is this file transfer. So depending upon who you are having meetings with, for instance, if this is like, say, a group of people that you work with at work normally, and now you're just working from home because of what's going on, then I would say leave this on, because you are probably working together, you're collaborating, you might need to actually transfer some files to each other. If you are having a meeting with people you don't know, or a group of people you're trying to get, like say on a webinar, and you don't know any of them and you want to be sure a little bit more protected, you don't want to allow them to send files back and forth to either to one another or to you, you can just disable this. Just toggle it off and you're done. And that's it. So I'm going to leave that on for this example, but in general, that's something you may want to consider disabling. Another thing you want to do is scroll down and screen sharing. You might not want to allow other people to share their screen. This is one of the ways that people are sort of like Zoom bombing each other with meetings that people are publishing the meeting IDs publicly and like on social media, etc. Like, hey, join our meeting, etc. What happens is people are able to connect, and then they just share their screen with everybody, and they are sharing a screen with inappropriate things on it. It's unfortunate that this is happening, but this is something that is happening. So one of the ways you can prevent that is by saying, I'm the only one who can share. And you can do that. So if you're the host, you can say that. You can also make other people hosts of the meetings. So say you're doing a webinar for a product of yours for your business, and you have 20 participants, but 3 people are hosting that webinar. 3 people that you work with, maybe different departments, but right now, instead of being in the same building, you're all working from home. You might even be in different cities. That's fine. You can still say, I only want to allow hosts to share. Because what you do instead is you enable other people to be hosts. So those 2 other people that are also going to be sharing things from their screen and maybe discussing certain aspects of the product that you're talking about, you basically enable them to be hosts. You give them the host permissions as well, and then you're fine. So you can still work around this if there's more than one of you that needs to share files, but like if you're doing a class for students and you don't want to allow anybody else to share their screen, this is how you manage that. So again, I'm under the in-meeting basic section. That's where the screen sharing's at. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back. Just so you know, when you have locked this down and somebody clicks, so it doesn't technically take away the button to share the screen for the end user. They still see it, but when they click it, they get an error saying you don't have permissions to be able to share. So just so you know, in case somebody were to say, I can still share, they really can't if you have this locked down and they're not a host. They have the ability to click on the menu button as the way they would normally do it, but they can't actually do it. The program will stop them from being able to do it. So I'm going to change that back and leave it the way it is. So those are the main setting things that I wanted to share with you, and that's under your, I clicked on account and then just settings. So that's how you get to those things. So how do we hold a meeting? So the way that you create a meeting is you go to meetings and you schedule a new meeting. And I'm just going to say practice meeting. You can type in here, or you don't have to. You select a time, and keep in mind you don't have to wait for that time. If you select the time, then it's sort of already ready and waiting for people who, like if you're doing it, you're scheduling it with somebody, so then it knows it's in your account and it's ready to go. Depending upon what types of account you have with Zoom, you're allowed to do different things. I have a free account. This is just showing you the stuff that's in a free account, and you can see that right here because it's telling me what my limitations are. So because I have a basic plan, which is the free plan, but that's what I'm just showing you how you can do this. I have a 40-minute timeout limit. So once 40 minutes hits, it's going to stop my meeting. It's going to stop allowing me to have it. And then I can only have three or more participants, but I think it's limited to 100 if I'm not mistaken. If you have a what's the next plan? There's the paid plan. It's like $14.99 a month if you pay monthly. I think it's a pro plan. That plan, I could probably click up here and find out. Yeah, here we go. It allows you 100 participants, and also you can go 24 hours. That's a really long meeting. I don't know why you would need that long at one time. But basically that's one continuous stream, meaning you don't have to stop and start. So like over here, I get 40 minutes. So then I would have to stop. I'd have to get everybody to reconnect again if I wanted to continue that meeting. So that's not as helpful, depending upon how you're using it. So if you're in small groups, this is perfect. And the example I'm going to show you, this is going to be just fine. They do make it easy to upgrade. If I wanted to upgrade, I could just click that right here. But I'm going to say this meeting's at 3, which is fine. And I'm not going to change that, but I am going to just click start now once it's created. So that way I can start it right away. You can also make this a recurring meeting if it's something you're going to do every week. And then when you want to come back to it, you would click on meetings, and you would click on the section for previous meetings, and that meeting would be there, and you could just start it again. So that's something that works for people who right now are having, say you have a meeting like every single week or even every day at 3 o'clock is like a check-in with your managers. You can create a recurring meeting, and then it has the same ID, and just make sure only the right people have it, and then they can just keep connecting with that same ID each time. So that makes it a little bit easier. And then I'm going to, some of these things are new with the new password requirements that I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to actually email this meeting to somebody. So when you email it, they don't have to have a password. If you give people, if they're using the personal meeting ID, they have to also have a password. So let's see, video host, I'm going to say on, participant off is fine. And then I'm going to leave the audio. Enable join before host, no. Mute participants on upon entry. I'm going to say no on that. If you're having a meeting with a lot of people, you definitely want to click this. But I'm also going to show you how, once I get started, I'm also going to show you how you can mute everybody at once, and you can mute and unmute people as you want. Because oftentimes you'll find that you mute people, then they unmute themselves to talk, and then they forget to remute themselves. So if you're a host, you really want to be paying attention to that list and monitoring the users, because that's how you keep your meetings clear and concise so that people can actually hear. And I'm going to click, I'm going to undo this enable reading room. That's also a new feature. But because I'm just going to have one person connect so you can see how this works, I don't need it right now. So I'm going to click save. Once you do that, you get this really cool little thing where you can you have a join URL, and it's got the password stored in there. So I'm going to copy the invitation. So I'm going to copy my meeting invitation. And then I am going to, through an email account, I'm going to send that to a friend really quick who's going to join the meeting, just so I can show you how it works. And once I send that, I'm going to close this, and that person can connect. And I am going to start this meeting, because if I don't start the meeting, then he's going to not be able to connect. So here we go. And I'm actually, of course, looking at the wrong screen, but that's okay. So one of the first things I want you to look at is, you can see on my screen, is the manage participants. So right now there's me, and that's all there is. As people join, you'll see them there. If you see, if I click that again, it goes away. So when you first connect, that is not by default, that little panel doesn't show up. So that's why I click that to enable that. Secondly, there's also a chat window, and so I usually click on that as well, and I can see this, it kind of splits these two so you can see them both. I Just so you know, when there are multiple people in here, you can select anyone in here or everyone. So you can click to, oh, see, there's my person connecting. You can click on the everyone piece, and if you just have a message for one person, then you can just type to that person individually. So you can type to everybody like, hey, can everybody hear? I'm having trouble hearing, or something like that. Or if you have a specific person, like I could say, can you hear me? And that's only going to him. So everybody else in the meeting would not actually see this. They would only see nothing unless somebody else typed to everybody. So that's the different ways you can actually have little chats, and people can actually have little private chats, but they can also chat to each other specifically. So now I can see my participants. So if I hover above the participants, I can unmute that person automatically. You also see that now that somebody's joined, I have this panel for mute all. So I can mute everyone, or I can unmute everyone just by clicking this button. And that's all it takes. So mute all, unmute all. So allow participants to unmute themselves, yes. So usually you want to allow people to do that, because if you don't allow them to unmute themselves, then you have to really manage that, because basically what's happening is you've muted them and you ask a question and you're waiting, and they're not answering. It's because they can't unmute themselves. So when you mute all and it asks you, do you want to allow people to unmute themselves? You probably want to say yes most of the time, unless it's really a one-way conversation, like basically you're doing a webinar and you're presenting a topic to people and you don't actually want them to be able to respond. So usually what happens in a lot of those types of deals is people are participants, and what they do is they type to everyone and they say, they basically just ask you to type in questions, and then people type in like, well, how much does the product cost, or whatever the thing may be, whatever their question may be. So that's kind of how that works. The next thing I want to show you is how to screen share. So if I wanted to, I can share my screen. And so you guys are seeing my screen anyway. It's a little bit weird, but in Zoom, when you're inside Zoom, you want to be able to say you can share your screen. So I'm going to double click and it'll tell me which screen I want to click or share. And now if you can see this, there's a green line around my screen. I think it's actually falling outside the recorded window, but you'll see it if you ever do it. So once you do that, then I'm going to click on like a different web page. So say I wanted to show a different web page, and this is actually related to this specific blog that I wrote right here. So I could share this, and everybody who's on the call can actually see my screen because I've shared. So you can see up here, once you come up here, you can do different things with this video. So the first thing I could do is stop share. So now I'm not showing my actual computer screen anymore. You're just seeing the video of me if I have it turned on, which most host people would do, and you also still hear my voice. So that's how you can do that. Another thing that I told you I would show you is how to make somebody else a host. If I wanted to make somebody else a host, you just go over their name and hover, and you say more, and you can make a host. So you can allow them to record, you can do all kinds of things, but if I make that person a host, then they can do the same things that I'm doing, which is mute all, unmute all, things like that. If you only allow hosts to share their screen, that's where you can have that other person who's doing a meeting with you share. That's the way that you allow that to happen. The other thing is, if you are just a standard participant of one of these meetings, you don't see these buttons here. You don't have access to that because you're not a host. So you only see that when you're a host. And that's basically all you have to do for hosting a Zoom meeting. You could record it if you wanted to. You could have pressed this at the very beginning, like say it was a lesson for a class. You could record it and then send it out. That's not something that I'm doing with this, but it's something you could do. You can also invite people directly from here. You can stop video. There's all kinds of things you can do, but that's the gist of everything. That's it. That's pretty much how you host a Zoom meeting. When you're done, you can just I usually just close the Zoom window and it says end meeting for all or leave meeting, and because you're the host, you usually say goodbye and finish the meeting and then end meeting for all, and then it comes up with the software, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much how you host a Zoom meeting. This portion of the video is to show you how you can do document collaboration. So collaboration is basically working on files together at the same time. So if you just have files you're working on and you're sharing them with others, but you don't really need to work on them at the same time, you can still do that with Google Documents and stuff, but you wouldn't necessarily need that. If you're just trying to share files, you could do that with OneDrive, or you could share it in Teams like we showed before, where you have chatting and files at the same time. But anytime you want to work on a project with other people and be able to edit at the same time, you definitely want to use a collaboration tool like Google Docs. So I'm already logged into my account, so I'm actually going to go to Sheets, and I'm going to pull up a sheet, and I'm going to show you how you can add other people and invite them to be able to edit at the same time. And here I just have some basic stuff going on in here, a little bit of information. The way that you share is by clicking the share button up in the upper right corner, and then you enter the email address of that person that you want to share with. So I'm going to share it with my business partner. And then right here, this is how you determine what kind of access do they have. So they can either just view it, they can make a comment, or they can actually edit it. So for collaboration, obviously you need to be able to say they can edit it. You can add multiple people here. You just keep typing their email addresses and adding them in. And then you can type a note if you want to. So I'm going to say this is project list in progress. Please update your status as well. Okay, and then the notify people, you want to make sure that is checked. It's usually checked by default, but just always check. That way they get an email invitation in essence, and they know that what's going on. So you can click send. Also, if you notice, I didn't point it out, but there's also, you can do this shareable link. So if you wanted to, you could just copy this link, type in an email, and write a longer explanation, or however you wanted to do that. It doesn't really matter, but the way that I did it invited that person directly. So this is a little bit longer of a process with this link, but you can also do that for people if you want to have them just be able to view it, comment, or edit. You still have the same principal permissions as well, but it's just a different way to do it. So it's kind of up to you how you do it. So as you can see, I already have this other person. They're automatically assigned a different color than me, and they're already editing in real time. So this is actually, for me, is a little bit too close to what I'm doing. So I'm going to insert a couple rows at the same time, and you can see I'm blue, the other person's pink, so those are kind of automatically assigned colors. I'm going to say need to create quote to bring to next meeting. And so as we're both working on this, you can see that not only can we both be working on it at the same time, and the other user would see the things that I'm doing as well, but it's actually tracking who's doing what. So you can see who's making these different changes. So I could also put something down here for customer site move. Need to make sure internet is set up prior to move date. Follow up with client to ensure appointment is set. Oops. So as we're working away, you can see we are doing different things. So I'm going to put Monday's date for that as a reminder. So you can see that we're both typing away and the sheet just adapts to it. So if there were more people, you would see other initials up here at the top with their assigned color, and as they made changes, you would see their little box moving around with their name as well. And that's really all it takes to collaborate on a file. This is an Excel spreadsheet. You can do the same thing with a Word doc or calendar or anything like any of the pieces that are in the Google Docs. So that's basically how you do file collaboration with Google Docs. It's just pretty much that simple. Plans are free to start. If you want to do the G Suite applications, you have to pay for those, but as individual users, you can use these with some limitations, obviously, of course, because it's free, but it's a great place to start and see if it works for you and works for your business before you switch to a paid version. And that's pretty much how you do document collaboration. This portion of the video is to show you how to use Microsoft Teams. So this is one of the pieces of software that are great that you can get for free to help you work from home and connect with people that you work with. So once you sign up for Teams, which is free, which obviously has some limitations, mainly it's going to be about file storage, but you can start for free, you can add lots of members, you can get going right away, see if the software might work for you. See if it works for your team, how people are using it, and make sure it makes sense to even consider buying a paid plan. So when you get started, you basically, the first thing you want to do is you have obviously Teams inside of the Teams app, and this is the I'm on a Windows machine, so this is the desktop app that you can download for free. It only takes about 20 seconds. And what you first want to do is you want to create teams. So the first thing I'm going to do is there's a couple here, and you can see that there's different teams, and then there's also little what's called channels inside of Teams. So the team is basically like, for me and for our business, we created teams, and they're going to surround different categories of people. So For you, it might be like HR, it might be your sales team, it might be the support techs, it might be project managers, whatever makes sense for you. So I'm going to show you what it takes to build a team. So I basically started with join and create a team. Create a team, I'm going to say, that I'm building a team from scratch, and got ahead of myself there. And then I'm going to say org wide. So everybody that I've already created and added to my organization. So what kind of team I'm going to do is I'm going to do an org-wide team. So organization-wide is what this means. So everybody that's in my organization automatically joins. And I could change this. I could do anyone can join, which is what public means, or private means people have to have permission, meaning I create it and maybe it's HR. And I'm going to only have people in there that make sense, the finance people, people that deal with HR forms, and maybe some key bosses, but I'm not going to have every individual in this group because that's not going to make sense. So if somebody tried to join, they would actually have to be approved. Public would mean that you create it and anybody can join as they see fit. So if you had something that was like side projects or some sort of thing like that, that was sort of an optional thing that had to do with your business, or even this could be like about networking groups, it could be anything you wanted to use it for. That would be what this would be for, so that anybody can, but they have to show that interest. Org-wide means that everybody is automatically joined. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to call it project management, and I'm going to create it. And it's going to create this team for me, and that's pretty vague, project management, you see it here. So what I can do inside of that is, if I go like this, it just has like a general that's automatic, is I can create more channels and I can also add more people. So first I'm going to create some channels. So a channel is sort of like, consider it like a subject. So the project management is sort of like the theme of what we're talking about, and then a channel, that team is like the theme, and then the channel is sort of like a more specific type of category. So I'm going to say upcoming projects. And again, I'm going to say accessible to everyone on the team, but I could change this at any time. So there might be certain projects, if I was, say it was construction and I had different people in charge of different projects, I would probably make it private and assign those people that it made sense to for each team. So that's again where you can do this, even though my team was, everybody was added. Once I add a channel, I can also do permissions at that level, which is really nice. Also, if you notice here, automatically show this channel in everyone's channel list. You can or cannot select that. That's up to you. I'm going to select it and I'm going to say add, because I want people to be paying attention to upcoming projects. And now that channel has been created, I could start a conversation and just say, welcome everyone, please check in and give us a status update. And then everybody will see this and they can choose to reply. They can also respond that, you know, maybe they're overwhelmed or whatever's going on, at least they've seen it. So thumbs up would kind of let me know they've seen it. So I'm going to create another channel. So I'm just clicking on this little menu here. I'm left clicking to get add channel. And then I'm going to say current projects. Same kind of thing. This is exactly the same as what I just did. I want everyone to see it. And I'm going to click add. And now I could do the same thing. I could start a conversation here. I could do anything I wanted to do. I could post files up here in this project section, if that made sense, so that people that were in this specific project could see it and that they could do things with it. So from here I can upload documents. So I'm just going to drag something from my desktop into here. And now what will happen is this will show up in this, when people are looking at this channel, they'll see that a file has been uploaded and the date, they can look at it and respond. Ultimately, eventually, let's see if it shows up right away. Hasn't shown up here right away yet. Teams has been a little bit overwhelmed since everybody's been working from home, so I've noticed some of the things have taken a little bit longer to show up than they normally would. But eventually this file will show up in here, and any other files that you upload to any of the channels will show up in here so that people can access them there as well. Another thing you can do, if I go back to my Teams section here, is you can manage users and see who has access to what. By clicking this cog down here, when I hover, you see it says Manage Teams. So from here, if you click on the name, you go right to that channel. So that's one way of getting there, but that's not really what I'm there for. You want to look at the people that are in the group, who are the members. You can't click over here. You actually, even though there's two links, you actually want to click on the people over here, and that will show you who the members are. And then you can also click on analytics, and it's going to show you things that are going on with this group and this channel. And that's another thing that you can look at. There's also analytics overall over here. And it's going to show some different things. And then if you wanted to click on a certain thing, you could look at a certain thing by clicking on, takes you right back to the same place we were a second ago. So there's a few different ways to get to things. There's a lot hidden under this little cog right here for managing teams. And between the analytics and some other things, you can also create a team from here. There's quite a bit hidden under this menu that you'll want to look at as well. And that's basically the gist of teams. Is you create different teams, groups of people, and then you create subsets of those which are more specific, and then you can put files in there, and it keeps you from sending things to people or even both chat and files that are for more people than they are intended to be. So if I did everything up here in sales, when I could break that down into sales of different products, that would make a lot more sense. So the idea is to, instead of having the everyone email, which drives everybody crazy, is to make small little more specific units of people so that you can keep chat and keep file sharing and things like that to only the people that it really matters to, and that helps be more effective, and it saves everybody time. So that's a good way to use Teams for the chat and the file sharing.